Well, good morning. This is an unlisted live stream, and I just saw Joseph's at JH Aquatics video on hydrogen peroxide uses in the aquarium or in the aquarium hobby. So I wanted to bring this video to you guys because I'm just learning what hydrogen peroxide does and what its effects are and how we are to treat it respectfully and educated so that we don't harm our fish, harm our plants, harm ourselves in the process of using hydrogen peroxide. There's different solutions. There's 1%, 3%, and so on. And most household people have 3% hydrogen peroxide, which is sold over the counter in most of our drugstores and general shopping centers. Excuse me. So nasty. I will edit this. But I'm going to flip the camera and talk to you about what I did. Okay, I was having a big problem in this aquarium. I set it up with Eco Complete substrate. I had play sand and some gravel substrate in it. I used this tank um, to house the 6 wild minnows or shiners that I raised out from fry in from my creek. I wanted to see how they grew, what their behavior was, and everything. And I also bought a marbled self-cloning crayfish that I had in here, and it was a what I titled this tank my natural tank or my native tank. And my problem came in when I started adding more rocks and driftwood out of the creek. I did not sterilize the driftwood and the rocks properly. I didn't let them age. I didn't let them dry out, etc., etc. You know, beginners' mistakes that ended up being critical. I'm hoping I can recover this tank. Over the months, I ended up releasing the minnows because as they got older, they were more afraid of me, and instead of coming out and swimming and being enjoyable, every time I walked up to the tank, they hid or they were highly stressed. And my crayfish, she crawled out of the tank one night and ended up in the bathroom where it's very cold, and also we had just had the pest control guy spray insecticide, and she got into it, and of course it killed her. So I was using this tank. I thought I cleaned it out good enough, and I was using this tank for my angelfish uh, species only. And the fungus and the mulm continued to grow to me out of control. Even when I tried to suction it out with water changes, it didn't come loose. And if it did come loose, it came loose in big clumps. And anyway, the conditions bothered me. So during the last, I think, spawn number 5, I decided to try to raise out the baby fry without the parents. So I took the parents out and put them back over here into the 55-gallon, which transferred the white planetarian worms, and that was also in this tank. And Anyway, I'm trying to make a long story short. The the baby fry, the angelfish fry, continually died off every night. And I think I had 5 to 7 fry left, and so I removed them with a turkey baster and I put them in the aquarium right here in a breeder box, transferring plantaria plant plantaria worms or whatever, planaria, excuse me, planaria worms. So now I have 3 tanks with planaria worms in it, but they're not out of control that I can tell. So with this tank right here, the 25-gallon, I decided to empty it. I did do a little research, and it said to raise the temperature to about 95 degrees for 3 days, and douse it with hydrogen peroxide. And one article said I could pour a whole bottle of hydrogen peroxide in this aquarium. Well, I was nervous with that, so I only put half of a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, which I'd have to get the bottle to find out how many ounces it was. So we started the sterilizing process. I left the filter running. I left the sponge filter in. I removed the rocks. I left the driftwood in too, because I am going to try to save my driftwood. And I already sterilized the little anubias that was barely hanging on by its roots. It had some new growth on it, so I don't think I'm going to lose that plant. So, long story short, again, I ran this aquarium with a half a bottle of peroxide for like 2 days. And on the third day, I could tell that it was working. I could tell that the mold and the fungus that was attached to the substrate and to the walls and everything, I could tell that it was letting go, and the sponge filter and the sponge on the filter intake was also getting covered by this mulm. And on the third day, I decided to go ahead and douse it with the rest of the bottle of peroxide. And I've been sleeping in this room on this day bed because we had house guests. And excuse me, I noticed that the filter was making a whole lot more water noise, which meant even the filter was getting purified or sterilized of the mulm buildup on the inside of it. I still got to break it down and finish disinfecting it. But I guess on day 4, which would have been more than 48 hours, I can't do the math. I guess that's 96 hours. This horrible smell started coming from the tank. Sorry. And I lifted the lid. Okay, the day before this horrible smell, I turned the heater back down to 76. So it ran for like 12 hours on cooler temperature. That thing began to stink so bad, I lifted the lid, and yes, this aquarium was stinking. And the water had been clear since the peroxide treatment, but it was starting to cloud up. So I knew there was some other chemical process going on in the tank. So yesterday was my clean out day. I drained all of the water through the python. I rinsed my python very well with hot water after using it. I refilled it with clear, untreated water and redrained it. And so I also got the substrate out. So, my advice for using peroxide to sterilize equipment like that would be at least after 48 hours, do your water change. I learned the hard way. So, I will be doing an update as the process continues. It's only 28 degrees outside, so I won't be taking this gravel outside anytime soon. I'll have to wait till the temperatures go up. I am going to waste all of my substrate outside um, next to the creek. So it's sterilized of any germs. So I can't see how it's going to be harmful, but I'll think about it, educate myself before I do that. Probably just hurt myself. But anyway, thank you. I will be editing this before I make it live. Susan for SLC Aquatics. Hydrogen peroxide uses in our fish hobby.